Hi there. Welcome back to another wonderful episode of Carpos Corner. I believe this would be episode 7 if I'm not mistaken. And that's only because I started August 2nd, so it's the 8th today, I think. No, I'm sorry, today's the 9th. So this would be episode 8. And I know that because August 9th was the day that Jerry Garcia died in 1995. And I'll never forget where I was living in this condo with my mom at the time. I moved back in to live with her, and I was around 20, 19 actually, 19, and I got the news that Jerry had passed away, and I just cried. The interesting thing was that, as a kid, to cry for an artist like that, he was a big part of my life, but the Grateful Dead in general, just knowing that the band was doomed from that point on without Jerry. And I'm not going to get into the facts that they've done a great job and they've still continued to play for 25 years, and they put out some, great concerts. No new music, but great concerts. And I've had a good time. But at any rate, that's not what this is. I said it again, at any rate. Somebody quoted me on that the other day on one of my videos. They said, at any rate, and I was like, what do they mean by that? Oh, that's right, I say that all the time. I'm actually trying to improve that. It's better than saying so anyway or and I've always made my best effort to not say and you won't hear me use that very often because I just don't like it. So anyway, today I wanted to compound, as I said before, and I'm going to make this clear, all of my Carpos Corner videos are going to be positive natured or geared towards some sort of a positive something, at least in my mind. And it might not always come across that way. But today's is very simple. Don't worry, be happy was the best line that came to mind when I was getting ready to make this. It's like that Bobby McFerrin song from the 80s was like the epitome of, my dad used to listen to it, so I built a bond to it. But listening to it as an adult, the same with Bob Marley, Three Little Birds, songs like that. Like, songs that bring hope and share hope. And Don't Worry, Be Happy was always about the basic idea that you don't need to worry about shit, just be happy. I know that that's not an easy thing to do, that being happy is subjective and remaining happy is impossible. So happiness is not a state of mind that you remain in. Happiness is something that you learn to, let's just put it this way. Let's say you don't have the proper tools let's say you're on a vacation and you want to collect butterflies, and compare that to happiness as a metaphor. And you want to collect them, but you don't have a butterfly net. So you get a butterfly net, and then you realize it's not long enough, and you get an extension for it. The point is that you build in your mind better methods of being happy, because if you don't, other people are going to do everything they can in their life to bring you down. We all know people who are always complaining about shit, always bummed out. Not talking about people. There's like the secondary nihilism. I'm a philosopher, so I'm always asking questions. That's not an arrogant term, philosopher. It just means a lover of wisdom. I spend most of my life learning things. That's all I want to do. I want to understand how the world works. I want to understand how my brain works as best I can, my body works. And I want to try to lead the best life that I can for myself and for those around me, my family, my friends. It's hard because we don't know what the best path forward is. And often we get caught up in the bullshit, either people dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. And I was talking with my wife about this last night. I was like, it's so simple. People are always either dwelling on what might have happened to them as a kid or what it might have happened, not even to them, but to the government. Or did you hear about this conspiracy that happened in 1951? I don't give a shit. Learn about things, use it as a way to arm yourself with information, but it's not something that's worth dwelling on or worrying about. A lot of folks really are always looking for something to complain about. There is a segment of the population who are the drama queens, drama kings, who want to really just bring out any and all chaos. They want to bring up all the problems they have in their own life. They want to bring up all the problems with other people. They want to bring up all the problems that they see in society. They want to talk about what they saw on the news, even though maybe they don't watch the news, but they hear about it through other people who talk about the news, and it becomes this circle of nonsense. And what I've found, and the point here, is that it doesn't make people happy. Having information about the world through a lens like the television, the computer, media, does not bring happiness, does not bring satisfaction. Watching YouTube videos, learning things can be educational, but it will not bring happiness or satisfaction. Going out and actually exploring the woods or talking to people on the corner, those are the moments you remember. And I've said this before, but if you find that your life is becoming stagnant, get up and go to the damn park. One of the hardest things to do is just to break through that 10 minutes that it takes to get your shoes on, to get some stuff ready, and to load up in the car and to go to a picnic or do something, go to the river. Once you've gone, you always have fun. I hardly ever come back at the end of a day that I went out and explored and said, wow, that wasn't worth it, right? But how many days just get, past and past and past when we sit around and don't do anything. But ultimately we have to do it for ourselves. So I spend a lot of time when I have bad sciatica, I had pain, bad pain, sitting around, doing nothing. And that's all I could do. And this went on for a while. I'm not going to give you all the backstory. Some of you are subscribers, you know my story already. But, I was a carpenter for 10, 15 years on and off, doing other things in the meantime. And I had a great career working for I started my own business, and then I worked for this other guy for a while after my license expired. It was complicated. I had my own license as a licensed finished carpenter, and I would go out and bid jobs, build cabinets. I did kitchens with some designer in the West Hills, and I know how to build basically everything in a house. I got to brush up on certain things because that's how construction is. But I have that confidence that was built over all those years of learning. And I said, I have at least one thing that makes me happy, that I enjoy doing, and at the same time, something that is a trade that I can be proud of. And then what happened? I developed sciatic pain. Sciatica is not a condition. Sciatica is not a diagnosis, rather. It's a condition that expands over many different reasons. There's many different reasons why you might have sciatic pain. Your sciatic nerve goes down through your spine, comes out through the, I believe, L4 and L5 lumbar spine, the fourth and fifth, vertebrae, thanks, in the spinal column, and then comes out down through, back through the butt cheek, through the back of the thigh, around to the front of the knee, and then all the way down the shin to the tip of the big toe. And this spreads out into many different, radiates into other nerve centers. And the body being complicated, there's not a lot you can do for spinal injuries. And what happened with me is being 6'3" almost, 6'2.5", and lifting heavy lumber by myself one day in the rain. That's all it took to kind of trigger it. It wasn't that one day, but that was where it culminated. And I was miserable for a long time. I had to actually quit for a while. Then I started working for this other guy, and I was trying to be careful, but then I started moving Trex decking around. And the same thing happened. I was like, I told my boss, I'm done. I'm done with carpentry. That's when I started my kratom business, which I still have, by the way. Somebody asked me about that earlier. Yes, I still sell kratom. And I also tried to start making jewelry. Then I started making guitars and benches and all kinds of shit, which I still have like a whole load of like art stuff that I've created like over the years that I've spent, days on, that I'm going to put up for sale eventually. I put a lot of love into my resin jewelry, and my guitars. I've spent, like 6 months working on these guitars on and off, and haven't really felt confident enough to finish them and sell them yet, because as an artist, I'm always insecure. And that's maybe bringing me back full circle to the beginning of this discussion, which was about happiness. Happiness for me sometimes is just making something. It's not about whether I sell it or make money, but I need to be able to feed my family. I need to be able to buy the things I want, get land, and move up to a point where I want to be in life. I have no desire to be rich or wealthy. I have a desire to just have land and property and room to roam. That's all I want. So it's not the money I want. I have no desire for money, but I want money that I can turn into land. I would instantly like turn it all into property and land. And I have to work for that, and that's hard. So that brings me to the second part of my discussion. Sure, you can say be happy and enjoy your life, but if you have things to do and you're responsible, you have to work a job. That sucks. Well, it doesn't have to. I'm not saying everyone has a trade and everyone has a good job they can go to, but you should shop around. And you should be as picky when you go looking for a job as the employers are when they're looking for an employee, which sometimes they don't even care. But you should care. It was funny because when I went in to meet my boss and his I guess his partner, his wife, they're not married, I guess his girlfriend. It's always weird when people who are like in their late 50s or to getting close to 60 have, they're in a relationship. I don't know whether to call it a girlfriend, a woman friend, boyfriend. Anyway, my boss is the coolest dude. I mean, his name's Rick. He's got long hair and a beard like me. He smokes weed. He likes to do, build tiny homes. He does his own thing. He's got his own attitude. That's the kind of guy I like to work for. And when I went to interview with him, they said that they thought I was a great fit. And I said, well, I think you're a good fit too. And not a lot of employees will say that, but I'm picky as hell about who I will work for. And the only reason I'm going back into construction is because I wanted to build tiny homes, and that's what he makes. It's fucking awesome. But I also needed a job that I could find love in, and I looked around for a long time. It really was meant to be. I mean, literally, I looked on the Craigslist jobs, and it was the second job, and it was exactly what I'd been looking for. I mean, I'd found another one for tiny homes and another one building RVs into custom, travel mobiles. Just didn't quite fit right. And this one, it was just perfect. And I believe in fate. If you're willing to let it fall in your lap, it doesn't mean the fate's always going to go your way or be the way you want it to be, and that's the problem. We want things to go our way, and when things don't, we get upset. So, like I said at the beginning, I mentioned this in a previous video talking about emotions, but when you have a feeling of anger or frustration, you just let it go. Just let it flow through you. Don't suppress it. Don't suppress sadness. There are people who suppress crying, people who suppress, frustration, and I'm not talking about anger. It's good to hold back if you're angry and physically angry at a person. But sadness, anger, and even sneezes, like anything that wants to come from your body, let it go. I mean, I'm kind of I'm very open in that way. I'm not a prude when it comes to bodily, spit and bodily fluids, but there's within reason, but I just, cuddle puddle? No, that's not what I'm getting at. That's a half joke. Only certain people will know what a cuddle puddle is, but I'm sure anyone could figure that out. But no, it's about this connection with other humans and this feeling that we're all one, and that even with strangers, you can make a connection with them and feel like part of their life, and they can feel like part of your life. I've met people at concerts, like I met a guy at the Dead show who ended up being a good friend of mine, Space. He has a bus as well. I think I made a video talking about him a while back, but not talking about him, but when his family came over to visit, I posted a few pictures. I feel like I can read people really well. And I feel like I can look into people's eyes and tell if they're full of shit. And even some of the people I've met out there who have had past drug problems or even current drug problems, I can see if they're good or bad people. Like, in other words, there are some people who wouldn't trust a tweaker, wouldn't trust a junkie, just because of past experience. To me, it's all about the person. Because I know people who have been hooked on hardcore drugs who are honest, kind people. I also know others who steal and lie, and they're not on any drugs. It's not about what you consume. And I guess the point of that is that it's not worth it to judge each other based on what you think another person is like. How many times have you heard somebody try to tell another person how they should live their life? Where do you hear it? Your friends? Your cousins? your mom, your dad, your employer, maybe even, your coworkers. And too many people are willing to get pushed around. They're looking for the street signs. That's how they live their life. What I mean by that is, instead of following common sense, we follow the rules. When I was coming home from work today, I kind of have a roundabout way. You know, it says about 35 minutes to get home for me. It actually took me about 22. I saved like 12 minutes, 13 minutes off my trip by hugging the left lane and then getting over and turning at a no-turn sign, which I know is illegal. Sue me. It wasn't the wrong way or anything. It's where one area merges onto the freeway and everybody waits in line for miles. If you go all the way around that, then you can get to the part where the other people are turning left to go up to the same merge, and I take that. And when I got up to the light, it's one of those stop lights where it stop and go. Green for one side, green for the next side, right? Make 2 lanes, and every about 3 seconds, one of the lights turns green. Sometimes the line of cars in front of us gets too backed up to where even though it's turning green, you can't really go. So what do you do in that situation? Well, it seems like people just push their way in. So if one light turns green and this guy can't go yet, he waits for a minute. The other light turns green and the other guy just tries to jam in front of the other dude. And like, you know, basically being that asshole that doesn't realize that the whole point is if everyone just zipper merges. Zipper merging is what you're supposed to do when you drive. Don't want to get into driving, but I have a huge issue with shitty drivers. There are so many out there, and, you know, people who, you know, I'm the first to type out a comment on a YouTube video where somebody's sitting in the left lane, camping, going, you know, the speed limit, right? And I've been with people doing this. And then somebody goes around them and they get in an accident and it's titled like instant karma. I'm like, honestly, dude, you're holding up traffic. You should be getting the F out of the way. The whole thing is that left lane should be for passing only, and in some states it is, some it isn't. This sounds pretty trivial, but it's something that I face all the time because as a driver going to work and back home, commuting, I have to deal with people who don't understand the concept of how the road works. But I also give people the credit for maybe they're visiting, maybe they don't know, maybe they're not feeling well, you know? Think about the guy who's zipping down the freeway going 80 miles an hour. It's easy to go, look at that asshole, he's putting everybody in danger. But maybe that guy actually has a place to get to. I guess 80 isn't very fast. I don't drive 80. But I could drive 80 on the way to work. Maybe I do. I can't admit that on camera. The point being that when somebody's driving really fast, maybe they're going to the hospital. Maybe they have a sick passenger. You just don't know what's going on with other people. And if you transfer this kind of metaphor of how people behave in traffic into the daily life, you say hi to somebody at the store and they just scowl and walk away. And you think, fucking people are assholes. And then you find out that guy's like wife just died or his house just burned down. You know, you don't know where other people are coming from. On the same token, you see a grumpy looking dude walking along and he looks all harsh and mean, and you go, hey, how you doing? He might go, hey, what's up, man? And you find out that that person is a very kind and loving person who really wants to talk to people, who just maybe has a different perspective than you assumed. And assuming, there's that old saying, and I learned this in construction, 15 years ago. That's where I learned all these old quotes, right? Everyone's hopefully heard it by now. Assuming, it makes an ass out of you and me. Do I need to explain it? Assume. And that always hit home, and it really sunk in. I thought about it, and it's so true. Like, these little old man quotes are so freaking true. And that, therefore, I've learned to listen to the elders. And when people tell me, don't think too much, that really sunk in. And I've said this several times in the videos. I think I must have mentioned this a dozen times. It was on YouTube probably 10 years ago or more. And somebody left a comment. It was an older guy who was a subscriber, an older gentleman, who said, hey, just don't think too much. I don't recall the actual context, but I was like, well, what do you mean? Of course I think. I'm a philosopher. At that time in my life, I needed to think a lot. And that's why I didn't understand it. The more you think, the more you process, the more you realize you don't know, the more you realize that you don't need shit in life. You need two things. You need your health, and you need connections. That's it. I mean, I'm talking beyond food and shelter. I'm talking the actual physical things are important. Of course, we need food, water, and shelter. Of course. But, people are always like, well, technically, you don't really need that much. If shelter, if you live in a warm place, is connection to other people important? Yes, I think it is an absolute human need. We are social creatures. And I didn't, when I've said this in the past, I've had people come back with talking about liking to be isolated. And I've processed this and studied it and questioned whether or not maybe people aren't as social as I thought. No, they are. People want to have friends and family and connections. If they can't have that because they don't earn it, they don't work hard enough towards it, then that's their own fault. It can be difficult for people, but it does take a lot of work. And ultimately, all we all want is just to have a friend, to have a family, to be able to interact with other folks in this brief time we live here. So, my video, obviously I've ran over 20 minutes here, and my camera's, my phone camera that I use, like all of my video cameras for making YouTube videos have died. It's crazy. I really need to buy a new one. I think I deserve to buy a decent camera, but my phone died, it turns off at like 22 minutes. So I'm going to go now so it doesn't get cut off in the middle of me talking and click. So thanks for listening. I want to say thank you to everyone. Thanks to my patrons. If you want to get more content and some of my other more controversial or psychedelic rambles, you can get that through Patreon for even just $1 a month. I don't promote that often because it's cheesy. But other than that, check out my podcast, 15-Minute Free Thinking, if you haven't already. That I haven't uploaded a new one in a while, and I'll be doing that shortly. And thanks for still watching my channel. Thanks for giving a shit about what I have to say. It makes me feel good to talk to people, and I hope that something I said resonates with you. Ultimately, just be yourself. Be a good person. Be kind. Don't worry, be happy.